I think I'm falling in love with a modern HTC headset. Not their newest one though, cause I don't even need to try that thing to know I would hate it. It is crazy to me how out of touch HTC can be. That, combined with a pretty spotty launch, leads to one of their headsets often being overlooked. The Vive XR Elite doesn't have a lot of reviews aside from the ones that were made when it first came out. Most of them were pretty negative, and rightfully so. Apparently the software blew at launch, and that kinda made me a bit iffy on even picking this thing up. What ended up selling me was that I was able to get it for $360. Now, I don't know if that's a very common price, but I do know you can find them on eBay in the $400 to $500 range. So, is the software still bad? Well, it's not amazing, but I'd argue that nothing currently on the market has amazing software. All of them find new and unique ways to piss me off. With the Vive XR Elite, it is the complete lack of feedback upon clicking things. There's no noise played, no haptic feedback, it's only a tiny little animation whenever you click a button. But that isn't the biggest problem in the world, so I feel like I can't complain too much about it. When it works, just working is kind of a common theme with this headset. It has hand tracking. It's not as good as Meta's, but hey, it works. The headset and controllers themselves also track pretty damn well. The controllers themselves have the same problem any IR-tracked controller is going to have, where it needs to be in the headset's field of view to be able to track the controllers. I'd say it's not really any better or worse than my Quest 3 controllers, though. The XRE also has pass-through. I mean, it's better than the Quest Pros, but that's a pretty low bar. It somehow has no sense of depth, despite being one of the first readily available headsets to include a depth sensor. You can read screens through it, so that's nice, but the scale of everything just feels off. If you're interacting with a menu while using hand tracking and pass-through, the pointer just isn't lined up with your hand. What's really weird about this is that certain apps that HTC made apply distortion so that it does. It seems like this is something that should be enabled system-wide, but it just isn't for whatever reason. Quite honestly, I don't really care too much about all that stuff, and if you're looking into getting an XR Elite, you shouldn't either. This headset just isn't suited for standalone use. The app library is abysmal, and the only reason I even opened the store was to buy Virtual Desktop. This is a headset that is much better used for PC VR. Like I said earlier, I think I'm falling in love with this headset, but it has not come without a little bit of work. The first thing I said to myself after putting it on was, wow, this FOV really sucks. And I measured it so you can get an idea of how bad it sucks. 90 degrees horizontal and 77 vertical. So, bad. Especially vertically. I feel the stock facial interface really holds this headset back. You can't get your eyes any close to the lenses, and there's still a lot of room to do that. Now, HTC does have a deluxe pack which includes 2 different facial interfaces, but for $80, I'm not about to gamble with that. I decided to just 3D print my own. I scanned my face with my iPad, and about 6 prints later, I ended up with something I was happy with. I pushed my FOV up to around 95 horizontal and 85-ish vertical. Not perfect, but definitely better than what I started with. I've linked the files for that in the description if anyone's interested in trying it themselves. FOV certainly isn't the only thing that matters optics-wise, though. Who cares how much you can see if all of it looks bad? I'd say that the XR Elite's lenses are actually pretty good. They have way better edge-to-edge clarity than any Fresnel lens is gonna, but they're a bit worse in that regard when compared to Meta's pancake lenses. Really, what can you expect though? Meta just has more money to throw around at that stuff. There's also a bit of glare on the XR Elite's lenses, a bit worse than on my Quest Pro, but not really any worse than what I'd see on my Quest 3. I still find pancake glare to be a lot more tolerable than Fresnel God rings are. The displays are also fine. I kinda wish HTC would have went for a local dimming panel, but what you gonna do? The LCDs they used aren't really any better or worse than other headsets using LCDs. The black levels and contrast are just what you'd come to expect with a headset using them. The resolution is pretty good. It's a smidge higher than the Quest Pros, but like that isn't really something that's noticeable. So visually, in like the clearest spot in the center, the headsets look practically identical. The XR Elite does have one unique optics feature, diopter adjustment. Now, I couldn't test that myself because I have pretty good vision. Fortunately, I have a friend who absolutely does not. When we set the diopter to 6, he could see through it perfectly. Unfortunately, this can't cover every single visual problem that exists. And if you have a diopter higher than 6, then you're kind of shit out of luck. Next up is comfort. And this might actually be a hot take, but I think it's pretty damn good. Now, obviously I changed the facial interface out, but that was because of the FOV. With the battery cradle attached to this headset, it's actually more back heavy than front heavy, which makes it the perfect headset for someone who likes to strap a bunch of garbage onto the front of theirs. I do wish it came with a bigger top strap, but the one they sent with it works. And with this headset being as light as it is, I don't really have any complaints here. The battery life of the cradle itself, unfortunately, isn't the greatest. I get about an hour to an hour and a half, but something really cool the XR Elite can do is hot swap batteries. Now, HTC themselves sell additional cradles for $200, but quite honestly, that is a ridiculous price. Thankfully, you can just plug any battery you have straight into the XR Elite. If it can provide enough power, you can run the headset off of it. This is an amazing feature that I wish more headsets had. You don't have to worry about finding a battery pack that can sustain the charge of the headset's actual battery, since you're just bypassing it. And if you really want to, you can buy a massive battery pack, slap it in your pocket, and use the XR Elite like it's a Vision Pro. The controllers also have batteries. They apparently get around 15 hours to a charge, but I find it actually difficult to use them for anything. The PC VR streaming options make this a bit of a challenge. To use the Vive XR Elite for PC VR, you have 3 different options: Vive Hub, Virtual Desktop, and ALVR. I do not like Vive Hub. For the picture to look good, I have to run it at Ultra and crank the sharpening all the way up. I have a 4090 and I just can't hit 90 FPS when doing that. With Virtual Desktop, I don't have to max everything out for it to look good, but for some reason the controllers have some sort of smoothing applied to them, and it almost feels like you're trying to move them through water. This is really weird to me because I don't feel this is an issue on any of my Quest headsets, so I really just don't understand what's going on there. It makes the controllers practically unusable for me on a game like Beat Saber or Contractors, where I'm making a lot of fast movements. That leaves ALVR, which you can get good picture quality with, except it just can't track the controllers for some reason. Thankfully for me, I use index controllers like 90% of the time with all of my headsets, so the issues with Virtual Desktop and ALVR aren't really an issue there. To be honest, if Viveport let you refund stuff, I would just refund Virtual Desktop and use ALVR over it. I do wish Vive Hub worked better though, because it does some stuff really well. I love how all my Steam VR games show up in the XR Elite's library when I'm connected to my computer. Vive's desk software is actually really good too. It is leagues better than Immersed, which God forbid you have multiple physical monitors plugged into your computer. I wonder what would happen if someone had like a ZenBook Duo. And lastly, audio. It isn't bad. The speakers are better than the Quest Pros, but worse than the Quest 3s. And obviously none of those 3 come close to the Index's speakers. Overall, I'm super happy with this headset. For $360, I really can't complain. And I think I still would have been happy at even around the $500 price point. At full price though, probably not so much. In general, most people are just going to be better off with the Quest 3 or Pro. The XR Elite is just one of those headsets where you just have to be willing to tinker with your setup in weird ways. If you're the type of person who enjoys doing that, or you just really, really hate Meta for whatever reason, then the XR Elite is very light, has good enough optics, and is priced pretty reasonably if you look in the right places. The software issues that plagued it at launch seem to be no longer a problem, and it really makes me wonder what would have happened if HTC refreshed the XR Elite over the Focus 3. They came so close to having a good headset here, and, well, that certainly is not one. Hey, I have channel memberships now, I guess. If you join that, you'll get to see my videos whenever I upload them, as opposed to whenever I schedule them. And I also plan on doing maybe some like behind the scenes stuff and cut content, where I will unfortunately be exposing the horrors of some of my past editing techniques, if that's something you're interested in.